With just 26 days to go, Nigeria's electoral body, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has again further extended the deadline for collection of the cards by 1 week. You will note that there were calls from stakeholders and a number of Nigerians calling for an extended date for the collection of PVCs. However, here is what we know concerning this. I'm showing you some graphics that sort of breaks down the information. The new deadline is until the 5th of February 2023. Extended hours of collection by an additional 2 hours have been added. That is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. West African time daily. Weekends are inclusive. That's on Saturday and Sunday, so you're allowed to go on the weekends to get your PVCs. Now, this is the second time and the last extension of the exercise before the 25th of February 2023, according to INEC. Is it really the last? PVCs of voters who engage in double registration will not be ready. We're going to be expanding this conversation even further, and we have our poll running on Twitter. So tweet us in reaction to our question up on Twitter. We have a question that we're asking. We're saying, should INEC have extended the PVC collection date? Yes or no? That's the question we're asking. So head to Twitter, tweet it us, and let us know what your thought is on this matter. Joining us on Election Countdown Nigeria is political analyst and communication strategist, managing editor of Avalon Daily, Ayo Adio. Good morning, Ayo, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So I think the first thing to ask you would be, there have been calls for the extension of the PVC collection deadline, calls for the extension of the Naira swap deadline. Which of the extension deadlines did you foresee?
To be honest, I think more of the CBN extension deadline. That's because it was practically impossible to have shot or made the exchange happen by the end of January. So I think I was a bit Nicodemus in terms of predicting that there will be an extension for the CBN. For the INEC, I wasn't so sure, but I'm glad to see that the extension finally happened, even though that I've argued consistently that collection of PVC should be an all-year-round affair. It should be as easy as walking to get your driver's license or as getting your ATM cards from your banks. You don't need to wait for specific periods where the chairman of INEC decides whether or not you can get your PVC at a specific period of time. So I think that act has to be amended to ensure that people can collect their PVCs all year round. It should not be a stipulated period of time where the windows can be open and shut. It makes no sense to me at all.
And this is a very valid point you've raised. It would make sense that because you would think that Nigerians have 4 years to prepare for every election, and yet to still go through the same challenges over and over again. Some of the challenges that Nigerians have complained about would be the fact that they are unable to access their PVCs, not for want of trying, but because, last week we did take a tweet by Williams Uchemba, who had shared that Nigerians were angry at the fact that they didn't have access to their PVCs. They would go to the collection point, and then they'll tell them that, oh, your PVC isn't here, it's been sent to some other place. So who do we blame? Is it entirely the fault of INEC, or do Nigerians also maybe share some blame because of our last-minute approach?
The reason you have a last-minute approach is because it's not an all-year-round affair. So first of all, INEC needs to make sure, the law has to be amended to make sure that people can register to vote every day of the year and get their PVCs every day of the year. Now, the second part is, of course, the logistics challenge that INEC faces. They don't have enough manpower or enough technology to be able to deploy or distribute these PVCs efficiently. So what needs to happen for me is to democratize the process to ensure that there are partners who are licensed by INEC at various local governments, in fact, down to the ward level, where people can simply walk in to get their PVCs sorted and printed out without any hassle whatsoever. If you have to charge a bit of a premium for those, special centers to do that, that's fine. But for me, the process has to be decentralized. People cannot be queuing and clogging the gates of local governments just to get their PVCs. People are standing in line for tens of hours every day. I know people who have tried to get their PVCs all through last week, and they keep, getting unnecessary delays at local government. So for me, the first step is to ensure that this happens all year round. The second step is to ease the logistical clog that INEC has, and to do that is to simply to decentralize and license credible agencies in the private sector that will handle the printing and distribution of PVCs on their behalf, and it's a very simple process to happen.
I've seen several reactions to the inability to access PVCs by Nigerians. We have about 70.4 million of the current registered voters being young people. And young people have been very vocal and very interested in the elections. One of the speculations I've seen would be that what is happening now is in some way deliberate, because some people in some parties are trying to frustrate the young people from getting their PVC so that the election does not go against them and in the favor of whomever the young people might want. In this instance, do you maybe see any logic to that argument?
Well, there's a logic to every argument in political seasons, because on the strategy board, everybody does the necessary to win an election at the end of the day, especially those with the power of incumbency. But in this regard, I think that the problem is the system in itself, and the system allows those with the levers of power, to manipulate it in their favor. That is why I go back to the very first point, that except and until we are able to make this process of registration and collection of PVCs an all year round affair, we'll always have these issues, because you can't force me to register when you want me to register. I could choose to register to vote 1 week to an election, and right, I should be able to get my PVC 1 week to an election. You can't tell me I must register 3 months before an election or 6 months. It's a constitutional right for every citizen to exercise their franchise. And so it's the duty of the commission to ensure that those rights are preserved. And by extension, everybody should have the right to pick up their PVCs or register whenever they want.
Okay, very quickly, do you maybe think that now is the time for us to have conversation about digitalizing the process of registration for PVCs? Because we've seen in other countries. I had a friend who was in Nigeria, and a British citizen, and she just made a lot of applications online. And do you foresee that maybe by the next election cycle, this is something that would be brought to fruition?
Hopefully. I think the commission has embraced technology, and it can only get better, going forward. And I hope that we continue to push and refine the process and make it better, so that going forward, people do not have to go through this hassle where people are spewing conspiracy theories about young people being disenfranchised or a certain region of the country being disenfranchised. I mean, all of those things can be eliminated by simply making a process more efficient and effective. And to do that, technology always has an answer to the question. And if we use technology well enough and we amend the Constitution to make this an all-year-round affair, I think we will not have this glut that we have seen in this current, electioneering season. And hopefully next time will be better. And it starts by, having active citizens push for a better electoral system, and not simply sit back and allow politicians in Abuja decide everything that happens in the election process.
Right, so much needs to be done. I mean, this election, we're going to see how well we're able to embrace the use of technology in our voting process. This is still Election Countdown Nigeria. We're talking about the extension of the collection of PVCs by the INEC, as well as the extension of the swapping of Naira notes deadline by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We're going to quick break, and when we come back, we'll still be talking some more. Remember to head on to Twitter and vote in our polls. Should INEC have extended the deadline for collection of PVCs? A yes or a no? You decide. Welcome back to Election Countdown Nigeria. We did put up a poll on Twitter asking, should Nigeria's electoral body, INEC, have extended the PVC collection date? We, of course, asked you to vote, and 85% voted yes. 15% voted no, and these are the final results. Unfortunately, we will not be extending the deadline for you to participate in these polls. So stick around and join us tomorrow for a fresh set of polls. The Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline for the swapping of old Naira notes with the redesigned ones till February 10, 2023. This announcement was made in a release on Sunday. The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, said that Nigerians would still be able to deposit their old notes directly with the CBN until the 17th of February 2023, and he described this as the grace period. What is your take on the new deadline extension by the CBN? Let's take a look at this video.
From those holding illicit and stolen Naira in their homes for speculative purpose, we do aim to give all Nigerians that have Naira legitimately earned and trapped the opportunity to deposit their legitimately trapped monies at the CBN for exchange. Based on the foregoing, we have today sought and obtained Mr. President's approval for the following. 1, a 10-day extension of the deadline from January 31, 2023 to February 10, 2023 to allow for collection of more old notes legitimately held by Nigerians and achieve more success in cash swap in our rural areas, in our villages and communities, after which all old notes outside the CBN loses their legal tender status.
Well, there you have it. We're still looking at this conversation about the extension of the Naira swap deadline by the Central Bank of Nigeria. What are your thoughts? But before we get to you, let's hear what our guest this morning has to say. We're still joined by Ayo Adio. It's a pleasure to have you again here with us, Ayo. So, first of all, you did say that you did not foresee the extension, or you did foresee the extension of the deadline for the Naira swap, not the PVC. Yeah. Tell me why.
I mean, it was poorly executed. You know, the heart of every strategy is implementation, and I think the CBN got it absolutely wrong in its implementation. If your core objective, if the cardinal objective of this whole currency swap is to curtail or catch people with illicit or stolen funds, then I think there are more clever ways to go about it. Because the reality in our country is that the people with these so-called illicit funds would always find their ways to recirculate it back in our banking system, right? They collude with senior bank officials to get this money done. And I guarantee you, the argument that politicians are crying because their Naira notes are trapped somewhere is the biggest charade of the 21st century. Because these politicians have friends and are connected in banks, and many of them even have investments in banks that they can easily swap these currencies. And so they are not affected in whatever way. It's just, I think it's just this make-believe that you're trying to punish a few corrupt elite, when in reality what you're doing is punishing millions and millions of Nigerians who spend unnecessary hours queuing up at ATMs to get cash, who have their currency rejected at the market. There's all sorts of chaos across markets in the country.
I'm going to give you an example of my own experience with the interesting scenarios that this Naira swap has presented. But let's talk about, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that the timing was not enough because the strategy was poorly implemented. If there was a strategy that was appropriately or properly executed, do you think that the 3 months time would your position about the 3 months time in not being enough, would it have still been the same thing?
Absolutely, it would have. I mean, if they had a clear strategy and a clear plan, because the problem is people could not access the new currency notes. Okay. It's as simple as that. You went to the ATMs, you couldn't get the new notes. In fact, even as late as last week, Friday, ATMs were still dispensing old notes for a deadline. Oh yes, I've gotten. I drove all the way from the mainland to the island VI to get new notes. And when I got to VI, we had to use close to 10 ATMs before we finally were able to withdraw new notes. So I think that the strategy failed because the CBN on its part had its eyes on something else rather than on executing a policy that was meaningful to the majority of Nigerians. So all they needed to have done was to make the currency available. And all of this hiccup will not have happened in the first place. The truth is, our economy is still cash dependent in many places around the country. If you go to major markets in Nigeria, if you talk of Daanu market, the biggest grain market in Nigeria, the Adwa market, the cattle market in Potiskum, and markets across this country, in Singa market in Kano, it is still highly dependent on cash. I guarantee you these traders deal in millions of naira every day on cash. Nobody waits for transfer. It will drop. It won't drop. It never happens in this market. So our economy is cash dependent, and because of a few corrupt elites, you cannot subject the majority of Nigerians to some sort of hardship.
Well, in all fairness, the CBN has given more reasons than just being able to catch these few corrupt elites. They've talked about being able to ensure that the monies that are kept in houses are being brought back into the banks to enable circulation. They also talked about the fact that this hasn't happened in 19 years. So they're basically doing this as opposed to have been done every 5 years thereabouts.
To be honest, there's no problem with the currency swap. Let's get that straight. The UK is about to change their currency. In fact, they started the process already. They're going to change it. They have the head of the king on their currency. And it's going to be in circulation in 2024.
Enough time.
Right? It's enough time. All this hassle that we like to put ourselves through for unnecessary, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. Give people time for a currency swap. We've done a currency swap in our country before. During Soludo, there was a currency swap. The country did not, we printed new currencies, sorry. The country did not implode because of a currency change. So it's possible to do. Give enough time, implement properly, make the currency available, let banks have enough liquidity to do that and channel it through their ATMs. And we won't have those problems that we're having today. But I repeat, if it's to catch criminals, you're wasting your time because it's not going to happen. Well, I guarantee you, votes will be bought on the 25th, votes will be bought in March, and you will see it. Your television stations will capture it across. They have these currencies. You're already seeing them circulate. I mean,
you know, in furtherance to what you just said, there have been videos that have been making the rounds over the weekend where people have been spraying cash ones of the new Naira.
Oh, yes.
And these are things that people are queuing to access. We're still going to be talking some more about these topics, and we'd like to know what your thoughts are as well. Please tweet us at News Central TV. If you're in Nigerian, I have one question for you. Have you collected your PVC? Are you ready to vote? Our man Olufemi Adefisoye went around the streets to meet with the electorates regarding their readiness to vote using their PVCs, and here's what they had to say.
It's been a while. It's long I got my PVC. So getting a PVC is not a challenge. I have my PVC, I'm a registered voter, and I've been voting, and I make sure that this time around also, I'm going to cast my vote, and I'll make sure that my vote will count.
Yes, I've gotten my PVC, and I'll be voting.
Well prepared more than ever before. And after collecting our PVC, we are prepared.
Honestly, the 2023, this coming election, for me, it doesn't look like, I didn't see the way others are seeing it because, number one, everything looks lopsided. The currency exchange and what have you, the collection of PVC, everything around it is just making things look frustrating for the Nigerian youth. So for me as a person, I'm not inspired by this coming election for the very first time.
Well, I would say 95% preparedness.
Well, I've gotten my voter's card, so as prepared as I can be right now.
Okay, my PVC is not now I'm just getting. I've gotten my PVC from the last election. That's even before Buhari got into power. So I've gotten my PVC ready for Nigerian election. So, and I've done all those stress way back.
Oh, to be honest, I am well prepared. I'm really, really well prepared. I actually want to see what's gonna be the outcome because, you know, we've actually suffered a lot. The masses, you know, everything like. I want changes, we want changes.
I'm ready for the 2023 general election that is coming forth on the 25th of February this year, which is barely a month. I've got my PVC and I'm ready. In fact, that Saturday morning, I'm going to my polling unit to make sure that I cast my vote on the right candidate of my choice.
Welcome back to Election Countdown, Nigeria. Spirits are high and people are excited to participate in this year's elections. We're still joined by Ayo Adio. Ayo, there's so much excitement. Everybody's going to get their PVCs. It's become some form of social media trend. People showing their PVCs. Please protect your details. Don't show them on social media. Are you among the people who are just voting? I mean, I'm from the... I already had my PVC.
You're old school.
Yeah, old school. Did you just get your PVC?
Absolutely not.
You're old school as well.
Yeah, old school.
Great. Let's talk about this extension deadline and the importance or not of, you know, what it's trying to achieve. Starting off with the PVCs, because that's our last conversation. How much influence or how much impact do you think this extension would have on the electorate and on the elections?
Well, I mean, a few more people will be able to pick up their PVCs. I mean, let's not forget, there's still about 1 million PVCs uncollected in Lagos State alone from previous elections. So while a lot of people are complaining that they haven't collected their PVCs, there are still millions of people who have just abandoned those PVCs at INEC offices across the country. So it's not just that INEC is not even giving out PVCs. There are millions of people who have left their PVCs in INEC offices. But I foresee a situation where a few thousands of people will be able to pick up their PVCs in the next five plus days, and will be able to exercise their franchise in the coming election. But whether or not there's going to be, you know, a swing amount of people picking up PVCs in the next 1 week, I doubt that much. But obviously a few people will pick up, and whether these next few days will decide or swing any votes anyway, I doubt that much. Yeah.
All right, now let's take it to CBN as well. The extension of the deadline for the swap of the Naira notes. What impact will that have?
Well, another tiny prediction. I'm being a prophet this morning. I think it will be extended again. There seem to be there still are hiccups with the circulation of this currency. A lot of people are still playing catch up. And I still foresee a situation where it will be extended, and there will still be pressure mounted by legislators and people across the country for an extension. And I foresee another extension happening, except, of course, the CBN has the magic wand to ensure that circulation is perfect over the next 10 days, which I doubt. I don't see from where I stand. But my prediction is that there will be another extension. There really will be another extension.
Okay, fingers crossed. You've made 2 predictions on the show. We'll have you back again when they actually when they get fulfilled, or maybe when they don't get fulfilled.
Sure.
I have one more question for you, but first let's help you know your candidates. And this segment, we let you know what you need to know about the candidates, as well as their party, their logo, and their mandate. As we count down to the 2023 elections, how many of the candidates do you know? Today is another edition of Know Your Candidate, and we'll bring you another political party, giving you all the information you need to know about the party, the candidate, and their mandate. And this candidate name is Princess Chichi Ojei. The party is Aligned People's Movement, APM. The logo is represented with a bunch of cassava. Princess Chichi is a prominent Delta State-born politician and astute administrator who schooled both in Nigeria and overseas. She's a corporate finance specialist and executive director of Noel Ojei Holdings. She's the only woman in the 2023 presidential race, and she's contesting under the flagship of the Aligned People's Movement, APM. In her words, she said, "With the increased demographics of Nigerian women and youths, I stand a better chance of winning the people's mandates against other candidates." The presidential candidate said that she knows the implications of broken promises by past leaders, and she'll be held accountable for her promises when elected. Some of her promises are, if elected as the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, her government will place premium on the welfare of teachers, saying, "Gone are the days that we held the belief that the reward of teachers is in heaven. Now their reward begins here on earth." She also promised to be a representative of Fresh Agenda, committed to providing innovative, transformative, and responsive leadership, hope for Nigerians, unity, improved economic condition, and good governance. Now, being the only female candidate, does she stand a chance of winning? Well, only you can decide by getting your PVCs. Ayo Adio, is it not exciting that we finally get to see a woman who is part of the presidential
yes, it's always good to see women leading in political parties and not simply being the leader of the cheerleading group. Let's see more women, lead political parties and put themselves out to be voted for.
Absolutely.
It's a good one to say.
This is Princess Chichi Ojei of APM, and we have given you some of the behind the scenes and all things that you need to know about her. But as we wrap up, let's quickly share. For those, you did mention earlier about the fact that some people don't want to go collect their cards. Yeah. It's not just about INEC making the cards available. Why is it important for people to go get their PVCs? That is for those who think that their votes do not count.
I find that a lot of people are looking for spiritual solutions to political problems, and that's why they think that God is going to help them change a government and not their votes. And the truth is prayer changes things, but vote changes governments. If you want a better government, go out and pick up your PVC and vote. And the idea that your votes don't count is the biggest lie from the pit of hell. They tell you that story so that they can keep your votes at a cheap rate between 5,000 to 10,000 naira. And if your vote did not count, nobody will pay for an object that doesn't have value. Your vote counts, that's why they pay for it. But they want to keep that numbers low by telling you that votes don't count so that you can sell it for between 5,000 naira and 10,000 naira.
With these few points of ours, we hope we've been able to convince and not confuse you that your votes do count, and you must go outside, get your PVCs, and be a part of the election process. Thank you very much, Ayo Adio, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all we have today on Election Countdown Nigeria. Over to you, Sal Gilboa.